Breaker Breaker, this is Striker Star 19 here to give my mission debrief on my viewing of Joker, which I'm mega late on. This movie has been out forever, and I'm just now getting to talking about it. Truth be told, I actually saw it a week ago, but I lost my voice. I had a really bad cold, so I was in no condition to sit in front of my laptop like an idiot and talk for several minutes on end about Joker. But I did, and even when I saw it last weekend, it had been out for a while. I think I was one of two parties in the audience. So, but I did see Joker, and I thought it would be worth it because it is apparently the most profitable comic book movie of all time. And I believe the word profitable is meant to imply not highest grossing, but most money net gained for its budget, because I'm sure it cost a lot less than something like Avengers, which makes a lot of sense because it is a little more low key than a lot of technical comic book movies. Where was I? So yeah, Joker. My ultimate opinion on this movie. It's a really good movie, but I don't like it that much as a comic book movie. And I think I would have respected it a lot. No, I would have liked it a lot more because I respect it a lot. But I would have liked it a lot more if it were just its own thing and it wasn't trying to be attached to DC or Joker or Batman or anything in that regard. Just to kind of, I think if this was just really heavily inspired by the Joker, you could pretty easily just change a few names in the script. And, you would just have your own original work and character. And I don't really see why this felt the need to be called Joker or have anything to do with Joker or Bruce Wayne. Because as it stands, we just have this very harrowing and very honest look at mental illness and the struggles that come with it and the class struggles surrounding it. But I feel adding in that this is also an origin for the Joker, and this ties to Bruce Wayne's origin, adds a few layers that complicate matters past what could have just been straightforward, really dark, really good movie. I can't, I'm not, I'm trying not to discredit the merit this movie has, because I think Joaquin is incredible. I think there's some really impressive scenes. There's some parts where my jaw just dropped. The part where Arthur, as I'll perhaps call him, is like dancing in the children's hospital and he drops his gun. That's so well timed. It hits so well. There are some really just tense parts of this. Oh man, everything to do with his mom and like what's surrounding the family issues there is super interesting. There's some I really like Robert De Niro in it, even though there are some bits to do with him I don't really like. We'll get to that. I just really wish that, like I was saying, it didn't, and I wish it didn't have to do so much with Joker himself. And you can like, you can tell someone, oh, well, just disconnect it from that. Just don't pretend it's not a Joker movie. Just kind of, separate your mind for a moment. But if the filmmakers wanted me to do that, they wouldn't have called it Joker. They wouldn't have said it in Gotham. And I think the big crux of why I feel that way is that I think it does such an insanely good job of making Joker sympathetic that it kind of discredits as an adaptation of future works where we're supposed to see Joker as a good guy. And I don't mean villains can't be sympathetic or we can't root for them. Like the villain is usually my favorite character in something, but I just feel a villain is stronger when you understand where they're coming from, but you don't necessarily agree. Whereas I feel the background set up in this movie leaves Joker with so little choice but to do what he does and sets the cards so against him that it retroactively, not, it doesn't literally do this for me, but it seems like it's trying to retroactively sour Batman media for me. It's trying to make me feel sorry for the Joker all this time, where that's just not what I want to do with the Joker, frankly. I like him to be a heel who I root for to be stopped before he does something despicable. And you can still like a character for that. I feel like that's something in our culture a little bit we've kind of forgotten about, is that you can like a villain and still want them to lose and see that as their merit. They don't have to be so utterly sympathetic or have their own victory. You can still like the bad guy for how well they fulfill the role of the bad guy. Whereas I feel as though the people behind this movie hate Batman. Because I guess let me cut to the chase a bit because I'm kind of meandering around. The big thing about this movie is that it establishes that the class struggle in Gotham is kind of what cuts a lot of funding to Arthur and the whole city's health care. And that's what leaves him without his meds to kind of fall deeper and deeper down his hole of mental illness. Um, he thinks Thomas Wayne is his father. Thomas Wayne has a lot to do with some of his miseries and some of his difficulties, though the line is a little blurred, which I thought was a good move. But it is ultimately established that Thomas Wayne is a bad guy. And that's fine. Like, that, I think we're totally in a space where we can discuss that Batman has privilege and that the concept of a rich guy beating up the mentally ill and poor and being a superhero could use a little tweaking. But I feel like this movie almost thinks it's the first thing to do that, which it isn't. And I think there are ways to have this discussion without completely uprooting Bruce Wayne's character, which I feel this movie kind of does. And what I mean is, we see they decide to interconnect the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne to the riots the Joker starts. Towards the end of the movie, we see that his inspirations of rising up against the rich are what inspire some of his imitators to kill the rich, including Thomas and Martha Wayne. Someone, I believe, with a clown mask like his says you get what you deserve, and they're the ones who shoot Thomas and Martha, and that's the incident that triggers Bruce into becoming Batman, which we're all but to assume that. Now, the problem with that, I feel, is that when you directly connect those events, that significantly changes Batman's mentality. Because, like I said, we are in a state where we should discuss Batman's privilege and his relationship with people of different economic statuses. But when at the core of Batman's character, his parents could have been anybody. And he and his parents were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and in that moment, their money and power could not save them. That is what inspired Batman to bulk up and get really good at fighting crime, and fight crime. I suppose what I'm trying to say is Batman wanted to stop any family from being the family or the person that was in the wrong place at the wrong time where he was. Whereas when you directly make the cause of Thomas and Martha's death the poor rising against the rich, that really frames Bruce Wayne's story as him becoming Batman to defend the rich. They don't explicitly say that, but when you have that point A to point B, that's just how it ends up being framed. And I think that's just a super disingenuous way to handle the character. I just don't think that's how we should be discussing the matter of Batman's privilege. There's the episode, what I always refer to is the episode of Batman the Animated Series. It's called Old Wounds. And in it, Batman catches a perp, I think he was a mugger. He was some kind of criminal. And he just beats the guy up right in front of his wife and kids, who he's trying to provide for. And this is the episode where Dick Grayson straight up says, "That's messed up, you're messed up, I'm taking off." And he leaves. And Bruce loses something in the form of losing Dick. And he learns something. So and they don't double back out of that either, because that's the story of how Dick went from Robin to Nightwing. They commit to that. And ultimately the point there is that Bruce learned something, and they made a commentary on his character on an aspect that hasn't aged well without totally uprooting it and without just completely throwing away the characterization. You can kind of see that in that the next Robin he adopts is Tim Drake, who he first meets when Tim Drake is trying to steal from him. He's like, well, my first Robin saw through my privilege, and that's why he walked out. let me slow down on this next poor kid, you know? And later in that very same episode, you learn Bruce, in his Bruce Wayne persona, gave the guy he beat up a job, which is still kind of a fantasy of, oh, the capitalist billionaire guy can fix all of our problems. But I still feel, I think approaching it that way and making Bruce learn something and make up for his actions is so much more genuine to his character and respectful than just making a movie where it turns out he and his family are the bad guys, which I feel the Joker really goes in a lot of lengths of doing. And I just feel when we have this decade and decade old character, it's a good time to make comments on him, but not to a good way to put it. I swear I have a point with this. Bear with me. There's an infamous episode of The Simpsons, The Principal and the Pauper, where you have Seymour Skinner, the principal of Springfield Elementary, who was this longtime war vet, and some of his defining traits were he was still very rigid from that experience, and he had the occasional PTSD. And it's revealed in this episode that he was an imposter, and there was a real Seymour Skinner that comes back to Springfield. And one of the creators of The Simpsons, I think Al Jean, I think it was him, maybe I'm wrong, he described that episode as a punishment for being committed to a character. Because when you have us believe something and then you just twist it and say, no, actually, this was the case, that's just a total kick in the pants. That nobody likes feeling that way. There are more organic ways to twist a narrative or to have us see something from the other character's perspective. And I feel that this movie punishes anyone that may have looked up or liked Batman for a long time because they twist this narrative that his big inciting incident of becoming Batman was because his family actively oppressed the poor and they rose up against them, and he didn't want that to happen again. And like I said, they don't actively say this, but I just feel when you have that cause and effect, I don't really know how else I'm supposed to interpret that. And like I said, you could just say, well, this is a different Joker, this is a different Batman, this is, a different universe. But at that point, I'm like, then just make this a different character, which kind of brings me roundabout to how I feel about how I just wish these were different characters. Like, call it the Jester, I don't know, and make it the Bruce Bane family. silly, I know. But yeah, just, I don't know. It doesn't have to be in Gotham. It doesn't have to be a comic book movie to sell, though maybe it does because of media and marketing trends. But another discussion for another day. That was kind of my big gripe with it, which is a shame because I really like a lot of what this movie does. There's some really great details that had me so like tense and scared. This works as a really good thriller. There's this bit where Arthur's old co-workers from I almost said the clown store, but it's not. It's like I guess a clown agency. They hired out clowns from there to be clowns for parties and marketing. I don't exactly know what the term for that would be. But his coworkers come see him, and there's this bigger guy, Randall, who sells Arthur a gun and kind of spurns his earliest murders from that, and then kind of sells him out, and Arthur's not happy with him. And then there's another character who's a little person who Arthur really likes and trusts because he's always been kind to him. And Arthur murders Randall in Arthur's apartment, and it's this horrifying scene. The poor other guy is just like sobbing and panicking, and then Arthur lets him go. He says, "I've always trusted you. You can take off." And the poor little guy, he's too short to reach the hatch of the lock, and he has to ask Arthur to unlock the door. And it just creates this, like, that's such a weird thing. Like, can you imagine a murderer killing someone, saying you're good to go, and you having to ask them to unlatch the door? Like, I'm home free, but oh, geez, I can't open the door. That's such an out there idea, but I love just, like, the dread it created. I felt really scared for him. He got off fine, but yeah, I really liked that. I suppose on, sort of that topic, oh man, one part that kind of disappointed me. They were doing cool stuff with the Murray Franklin character. I'll say that much. I really liked kind of one of his earlier scenes where Arthur imagines he gets to be on the show, and Murray notices him and kind of acknowledges him as just a really great person and like just this comedian he's always really admired. I think that just I think we can all relate to that feeling of, wow, what if all my good karma just like paid off at once and this person acknowledged me for everything I wanted to be directly acknowledged for. I really like that part. I was so disappointed with the talk show scene though, where Joker actually goes on the Murray Franklin show. I was so looking forward to that part because I knew Joker goes on to be with this comedian he really looks up to, but insults him on live TV. And he's gonna like get revenge on him. Oh, this is gonna be really unsettling, really harrowing. This is gonna just be so like I was so looking forward to seeing what Joker would do to Murray Franklin on live TV that would be super messed up. And then he admits to the Wall Street murders he commits on live TV, and he and Murray Franklin just have this really long, not tense at all conversation about their mentalities, and everything is spelled out. And I didn't need a review on why Arthur was doing what he was doing. I didn't need him to tell Murray Franklin that. I didn't need, and Murray Franklin like is not scared the whole time. The Robert De Niro character, he's like, he does not catch on to what's going on. He's like, oh, what's going on here? You're acting weird. You're a bad dude. When this guy just admitted to the Joker murders and is wearing the makeup of the emblematic symbol of the class crisis in Gotham, and Robert De Niro doesn't even care really. He's like, oh, yeah, I see. Like, he doesn't suspect that he's in danger even remotely, which would be fine if it was not drawn out for so long. And it's such a shame because I love the shot of Robert De Niro shot in the face. Don't take that out of context. You get this great, gross, scary visual of Robert De Niro just dead in his chair, leaned backwards, his jaw hanging wide open, bullet right through his head and blood all over the logo behind him, and the studio just in disbelief and panic as to what just happened. But it's preceded by, oh man, this just awful spoon-feeding dialogue where Joker's like, what do you get when you put a society with mental illness? You get what you deserve. You could have led into that. I wish it would have been so much more tense because we're in the Joker's head and we know he's going to do something messed up on TV. He's going to commit that murder. But we don't need that build up when it's been building up the whole movie. And at that point, it's just like, all right, come on, where is it? Show it to us. And I just so wish he had like, because the first thing he does is he tells kind of an off-color joke and kind of displeases people. I wish it had gone right into the facade to him killing Murray Franklin. Like, he tells a joke that's not angry and he just pulls out the gun and shoots him. And no one sees it. That would have been so much scarier and so much more shocking and just so much more fitting. Instead of this weird scenario where he confesses to his crimes on TV and argues with Murray Franklin, and there's no reason security wouldn't rush on and get rid of him, and there's no reason Murray Franklin wouldn't be very afraid of the situation and is just kind of carrying on the conversation with this mentally ill murderer he insulted. Like, that just baffles me a bit. I was so disappointed by that scene, I have to admit. Oh gosh. Oh, and there was also the stuff with Missandei from Game of Thrones, who's like the love interest he hallucinates but isn't real. I just feel like that adds nothing. Oh man. Which is, and I know, but those are a couple of like lower points. I think Joaquin does just such a good job with the physicality of the character. He's like super, super skinny because he's just not in a great place financially, I imagine. He puts so much personality in just how he smokes and puts on makeup and kind of makes his way through his day. I will say that as a big skeptic of this movie, I thought this was just going to be stupid. Like, when I saw that first trailer, I'm like, okay, sure. Go for it, guy. I don't think this looks good. And I like to be proven wrong, and I was from a filmmaking standpoint. but I still just didn't really like it from a perspective of an adaptation. And there's a lot of things I would have done differently. So I wound up feeling, I think that, combined with the fact that it's a very dour and depressing movie, just left me feeling very strange after I watched it. I wasn't feeling overwhelmingly negative or positive if I liked it or disliked it. Pardon me. It was just like, well, that was Joker, all right. I just don't feel like, I feel like just adding those outside characters from Batman and Joker and DC gives it a lot of baggage that I think it would have done just fine without. So that's just kind of my ultimate case on the matter, is that it's a good film. There's just some scenes I would have handled differently, and I wish people had the faith in something to stand on its own and talk about something as prevalent as mental illness and not have to be connected to a comic book. I think this could have been like just gone down as one of the all-time great character thrillers, but now it's pigeonholed in the comic book genre and comic book zeitgeist, and that's maybe my biggest disappointment about it. So that's ultimately most of what I have to say about Joker. I'm gonna have probably one more video to go this month, and then it'll probably be time for Little Things of Fall 2019, which is, those are growing to be the things I really look forward to planning out and making. So I'm really looking forward to putting that together. So yeah, stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe, as a YouTuber says. This has been Striker Star 19. Have a great day.